Hey folks, this is Manuel from Steadybit. In this video, we will focus on Steadybit's reliability advice, which makes it really easy to check common best practices in your system and make sure that you are following them. For that, we can jump into the Explorer of Steadybit, where we are visualizing your system and easily can ask Steadybit for advice. Now you can see that we are checking automatically best practices in your system, and depending on whether you're following those, the Kubernetes deployments are colored differently. Some are colored as red, which means some action is needed. So to improve the reliability of my system, I don't need to run a chaos engineering experiment. I just need to adjust the Kubernetes configuration to make it a little bit more reliable. Like for instance, in the fashion bestseller deployment, where once I'm opening it up, you can see different kind of advice. So best practices that we are checking, like whether you have configured CPU resource limits or whether the Kubernetes deployment has some redundancy, so some replicas configured, and also give you some help how you can improve the reliability of that deployment. Once you have adjusted the Kubernetes configuration and deployed it into your cluster, Steadybit automatically detects whether it's now in a better state. Like for instance, the Toys bestseller deployment over here, which you can see has no advice in the action needed phase, but 3 advice in the validation needed phase. So this state means that the configuration is looking good. So you have actually configured it in a reliable way. But whether it really works or not, that's something you can only tell by running a chaos engineering experiment. And now, thanks to advice, it's really easy to run this experiment. Simply check out the Toys bestseller deployment over here. At the left-hand side, you can see 2 different advice requiring validation. Like for instance, that one over here, which has implemented the action of having at least 2 replicas. And now you can easily create a new experiment with a single button click to check whether it's working as soon as one of the redundancies is going down, that a user visible endpoint is still working as expected. Opening it up, you can see that there is one to-do step in here, which you can also get rid of automatically by using special tags, but that's something to cover in another video. All it asks you is basically to add some checks in here, some validation to make sure that you can automatically validate whether your system is working as expected. For that, we advise you to use one of the existing checks that Steadybit provides or one of the load test integrations. In our case, we can simply use an HTTP check to validate whether the system is still working, executing it and see the effect, and in the end marks the advice as validated depending on the result. Now, given that the experiment runs successfully, we can validate the advice and this way indicate that this advice is correctly implemented and validated. Now, another good way to check for common concerns across your infrastructure is the Advice tab, which allow you to first filter on the specific advice, so the best practice you want to focus on, like for instance, whether all Kubernetes deployments are limiting their CPU resources, and you can now easily see all the different targets for that particular advice, and one is actually missing the CPU limits, whereas some require the experiment to be executed to validate the CPU limit, and a single one has already done that. Now you can explore all the different advice, all the best practices that Steadybit can check in our reliability hub. And also, nice to know, Steadybit advice is open source. So this way, whenever you want to adjust to your needs, you can simply fork our GitHub repository, or even better, using one of our extension kits, namely Advice Kit, to implement your own advice with the same look and feel, and this way really make sure that advice is fitting to the organizational best practices that you want to follow. Now we're looking forward in which kind of advice you are using in your organization. Thanks for watching and take care.